don't know if you've been watching the news lately, but there's been a recall on apple juice. And initially it had me quite upset because my grandkids drink a lot of apple juice. And I got to thinking, I've got apples and I've got a juicer. Why don't I just make the apple juice? Now here in our farm, we work hard at producing as much as we can reasonably make of our own food. I mean, we raise chickens, we raise cattle, and we have a large garden. But even though I've had apple trees, I've just never gone to the trouble of making apple juice. But apple juice, that just seemed like something that just wasn't important at the time because it's not expensive at the store. Well, it's important to me now. So, since we have apples and I had a juicer, I decided that I was going to make enough apple juice for the entire year so that I wouldn't be buying apple juice and my grandkids wouldn't be drinking that poison. I'd never made apple juice in a large quantity before though. So let me tell you, it's a lot of work. So after going out to our small orchard and picking 100 pounds of apples, which was, I think it was like 4 buckets worth. So I pick these 4 buckets of apples and get them into the house, get them cleaned up in the kitchen sink, and get the juicer out. And 3 hours later, I've got a whole whopping 1 1/4 quarts of apple juice. It was a lot of work for such a small quantity of apple juice that I was just like, this is not gonna be the way that I can make a whole year's worth of apple juice. It was just taking too long. Now that being said, the juice that it produced was pristine. It was clear. It was beautiful. It looked just like store-bought juice. And that's the product that I wanted. So my husband Paul saw that I was struggling with this and he went ahead and went online and he purchased an apple press. So we waited a couple of days for the press to come in, and then I waited a couple more days for him to put it together because it came in very small pieces. And then we realized, oh, we need this chopper thing. So we purchased that online and waited a couple more days. All the while the apples are not getting any fresher. So long story short, we ended up having to chop up a whole lot more apples, cut out bad spots that we wouldn't have had to deal with, and it took quite a while. Now keep in mind that I'm being very careful to core every apple because I don't want any seeds in what I'm making. Now that might be a little bit over the top. I'm sure it is. I did some research and found out that the arsenic that's in apple seeds is a natural thing, and as long as you don't grind up hundreds of apples, it's not a big deal. It takes hundreds and hundreds of seeds for you to even get sick. But I didn't want any of it in my juice, none of it. I wanted it clean. So we went to the trouble of chopping and slicing and throwing all this stuff into the grinder. And it took quite a long time to be able to get enough of the apple bits to put into the press. Now, you need probably 2 gallons at least of chunks of apples just to be able to get the press started. And somebody's got to continue to chop up apples and somebody's got to turn the grinder, and it is a lot of work. Some of the downfalls of using that press is we were working outside. I thought it'd be a great idea to be able to keep all the mess outside. And it was kind of a rainy day, so we were in the garage. Didn't matter. The bees found us and they came at us with a vengeance. And even though we had 3 fans going to try and keep them out of the garage and away from what we were making, they were still coming at us like we owed them money. And so we worked at that for a while. The product that we got out of the apple press was really good. Tasted fantastic. And it was very strong, pure apple juice. But the problems that I saw with that was, well, it was kind of murky and brown. And I thought, well, the kids, they're going to maybe not even try that. They might not like it. They won't even give it a chance because of its color. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so I tried running it through a filter. Did get some impurities out, but it's still kind of a cloudy brown color. I wonder if maybe I'd put some lemon juice into the chunks of apples before we threw them into the press, if that would have made a difference. I'm not sure. But the press is mainly meant to make apple cider. Now, apple cider is basically the same thing as apple juice, but it's not processed, it's not pasteurized, and there's no sugars or anything added to it. It's just raw apple juice. And that's why it's kept the brown color to it. The apples oxidize, and it's got a lot of chunks and bits and pieces, and it's just not filtered. It's very good for you. It's much better for you than what you get in the store. But again, I was working on trying to make something that had the appearance of apple juice so that, again, my grandkids would drink it. So we went through another 3 buckets of apples through the press, and it did a good job. I ended up running that through the water bath canner and putting those jars in our pantry, and we will use those. But in the meantime, while I was doing some research to try to figure out how in the world am I going to get enough apple juice and get a good looking product that that has a good appearance to it, that it's not going to look all murky and brown. And I saw a steamer juicer online. I watched a couple of videos and thought this might be the ticket. So I put it in the Amazon cart. Not really sure if I was going to do it because we'd already made that purchase of buying the press, and while it wasn't terribly expensive, I'm not one to waste money. If something works, and it does work, it does a good job for a large volume of apples. The only downside is the brown juice that comes out. So long story short, my husband purchases this steamer because it was in the Amazon cart, and we tried it out the other day. Now, I wish I could say that we compared apples to apples, but I had already picked our one apple tree completely clean, so we had to go to a different variety of apples, which were a dark red. Still a tart apple, but not the same apples. I ended up coring those and still quartering or putting them into slices so that you could throw them in the top of the steamer. But I will say that that made some really nice juice. It steamed out of there. It was clear. It was fresh. It didn't turn colors. The process is a little slow to get started, and you do have the potential of burning yourself because you are working with steam. The one positive thing that I found that with the steamer, I have all this extra apple pulp, which is cooked apples. And I was able to make a lot of products from that. So it didn't go to waste, it didn't go in the compost, it didn't go to the chickens. I smeared some on some trays and put it in the dehydrator, and we've got several sheets of fruit leather. I was able to run my stick blender through the mash that was left. It was cooked apple bits. Ran my stick blender through that, and then added some brown sugar and some spices and jarred that up and got several jars of apple butter. Now, if you don't know what apple butter is, it's the same thing as applesauce. It's just that it's cooked longer. The sugars in the apples have a chance to caramelize, and it just gives it a much deeper flavor. So it's so good. I did add some brown sugar and spices like I'd mentioned, so mine is like having apple pie in a jar, and there's going to be a lot of different ways that we can use that. Put it on oatmeal in the mornings. Certainly you can spread it on a biscuit or toast and have it very similar to an apple pie. You can put it on yogurt. You can put it in apple cakes or apple cookies. There's so many different uses for it. Had I actually gone to the trouble of peeling the apples, I probably would have just made it into applesauce, because I've made applesauce before. It's not difficult. I would have just put it in the jars, called it applesauce, and been done. But I'm so glad that I was able to make this apple butter, because it's just really good. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about the 3 methods that I've used to make apple juice. In my book, the juicer steamer is, without a doubt for us, the thing going forward that we're going to use, because I get all those other products that I can use and there's no waste. And we are very, very much goal-oriented and trying to make sure that we don't waste what we have on our farm. So another thing about this juicer, it worked so well that a couple of benefits that I noticed from it is, first of all, I didn't have to pasteurize the juice because it had already gone through the steamer at a high temperature. So it definitely saved me a step. The apple press worked really good. It gave us a large volume in a shorter amount of time. But again, it had that brown color to it that I was just trying to avoid. Nothing wrong with it. The taste is fabulous. It's just, I wasn't sure that the kids would actually drink that. The other thing about the apple press is it would go a whole lot faster if I had a whole family or several people working at it. So it's kind of a family activity. The apple press, once we were done with pressing out all the apple juice from that pulp, it just went into the compost pile and part of it went to the chickens. So that was all wasted. And the juicer, you know, if you got a couple of apples on the counter that are getting kind of old, run them through the juicer and you will have a fabulous apple drink that is clear and good for you and just wonderful. So each of the tools that I have has an application, has its own benefits. So was I able to make enough apple juice to last us the entire year? I haven't yet, but I haven't finished and I haven't given up. I'm still working on that. We're several quarts ahead of what we used to have, which was none. And it's all homemade and it's all pasteurized and processed in a manner that's going to be safe for the kids to drink, and I don't have to worry about it. If you're just wanting a glass of juice, the juicer works fabulous. If you're wanting some apple cider or you're out on a fall day after the bees have gone to bed for the winter and being outside is not going to be a problem, maybe you got a group of people over, that's an excellent activity to do. Just pull up a couple of wheelbarrows of apples and run them through the press and everybody will have a good time. But in my situation where I wanted to make apple juice, the steamer works best for me. I've got all those products that I was able to make just from the apples, so nothing went to waste. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, watch this next.